everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome to this Tuesday edition of the Angela Ray Show. I hope that you all have had a great day. It's still the beginning of a brand new work week. Thank you to everyone who will be catching our show on the replay. For those of you who will be hopping on live, please let me know where you will be watching from on tonight. We're going to give you a couple of moments before we start with the show. And first, as always, is our ray of motivation moment. Again, thank you to everyone who is catching our show on the replay. We're going to go ahead and get started with our ray of motivation moment for today. So, just so you know, kind of where the rays of motivation came from, I actually have a book called Rays of Motivation where I have 99 tips inside. And then the tips are very short. You can read that as a part of your morning coffee, morning meditation, or tea, whatever you have in the morning, whatever is a part of your morning routine. And then at the back of the book, I have kind of some expanded short stories. And so the ray of motivation moments that I've been sharing for the Angela Ray Show, most of them have been just expanding thoughts that I've had outside of the book. But every now and then I will go back and share something from the book. So I'm going to share one from the book on tonight, and that is Ray of Motivation number 42. And that is, if you keep riding with training wheels, you'll never complete in the Tour de France. So I don't know how many of you all are fans of the movie Ray. That was where I definitely saw actor Jamie Foxx in a brand new light. And as you watch that movie, one of the things that was very pivotal for me watching was watching the actress who portrayed his mother basically stop him in his tracks from holding her hand, so to speak. Essentially, this was during the time when a very young Ray Charles had just gone blind, and she had been helping him along the way. But there was one pivotal scene where she saw him stumble and she stood back and watched him and let him figure out how to make it on his own in this new life as a young blind boy, because he wasn't born that way. How does that relate to you? If you want to take the next step in your career, in your personal life, in whatever goal you have set for yourself, at some point, you're going to have to take the training wheels off so that you can run and compete with the big dogs. And that is our Ray of Motivation moment for this Tuesday edition of the Angela Ray Show. Well, I am really excited about my guest for tonight. My guest for tonight is a very talented runner. She started off as a sprinter when she was at Georgetown University. She hung the cleats up for a while and began teaching. But about 2008, after cheering so many of her friends on in their races, she decided to get back on the running path and started competing in marathons. So please help me welcome Miss Erica Stanley-Dottin. Erica, thank you so much for being on the Angela Ray Show on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So, Erica, there's so much going on in our world right now. as even though it doesn't look like it from so many of the people that we've seen assembled in so many different areas, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. So I'm just curious, how have you spent this time social distancing? Were you working from home or were you an essential employee?
No, no, I'm not an essential employee. I actually work part time, doing event production, doing, events for my children, my two sons, preschool actually, and um, that was even switched this year because we did it online. So that was the first time I've ever done like a virtual event. But we, basically were home from the day the school shut down in March, and then for that 3 months till now. I mean, we've been home. My husband's home. They're obviously home from school, so I've been juggling, the work and homeschooling, which has been, distance learning, as they call it, which has been crazy. This is a crazy time. It's a crazy, crazy time.
Were you prepared for the homeschool aspect of what's going on?
No, I tell people, I used to say, I was telling people, I'm like, my mom friends and I talk, and I'm like, what if they had told us that at some point, in our lives with children, we'd be home with them for, I don't know, 6 months, teaching them ourselves? We'd have been like, no way. Like, who could ever believe it? But you know what? It's been interesting. I tend to look at the positives, which is that, my children are 6 and 9. They're gonna remember this as a time when they were home with their parents, when, they got to do their work with me, with him, one on one, like be on their iPads, just have all their comforts of home around them. Sure, they miss
Hmm.
their friends, but I really believe like they're gonna look fondly on this time, back on this time, which is, and I think about that. So that kind of gives me, keeps me going.
Now, speaking of being a young person, at an early age, your mother started to sense how talented you were as a sprinter and started getting you coaching outside of just, just being in school. How important do you think it is for parents to support their kids in sports?
Oh, 100%. I mean, my mom, I was a on the borderline between wayward teenager and like normal teenager. So she said, now that I'm a parent, I'm like, oh right. She was like, okay, let's get her into some kind of a guided activities. And I always like to run. I was like, always in the gym class, beating everybody at camp. So running has always been there. But she was like, you know what? Let's see if I get her in a program where she actually has to train and show up every day, that discipline, let's see what happens. And, it turns out it was probably one of the best things. It was probably the best thing, in my life, because it definitely steered me. I had somewhere to go every day after school. I had to, compete, like, I had to take care of myself, like all those things that, athletes do at a young age. I learned a lot of lessons. And so for parents to be involved, I mean, it starts with us, right? And my sons are into basketball. They're basketball fanatics right now. They haven't gotten into the running just yet, but we're trying. Um, we support it, even though, sometimes it's a lot of work, going around the games and, tournaments and in and out of gyms when I'd rather not be, but they love it, at this age for them, it's really about passion. If they're having a good time and they're learning teamwork, they're learning, sportsmanship, all those things are like super important. And I know that now as an adult. So like the fact that they're getting that at a young age, like I'm really happy about that.
So you're running this training and doing things in after school eventually led to you earning a scholarship at Georgetown. What was that time like in college?
It was awesome. I mean, I was in DC, in the early 90s. So um, the it was like it was an interesting time because I went to Georgetown, like you said, and Bill Clinton was actually not elected that year. And for me, being there in DC at that time was just kind of like it was awesome. But also aside from that, Georgetown was wonderful. Like I met some of my dearest friends who I'm still close with today at Georgetown. Running track in DC, it was a college town, so there was Howard, there was GW, there was all these schools around. So it was great. It was great. And I think, for me, the time in college, like that was some of the best years of my life for sure. Like I enjoyed college, all 4 years. So I look back really fondly on that time.
Now, when you first graduated, you weren't running, you weren't training, you ended up teaching for a while, and then you found a way to kind of get back involved in sports somewhat with your event planning and production company. Talk a little bit. Yeah, I know you mentioned you do some events for your son's school, but talk a little bit about how you've worked with some major brands in the sports world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I taught for a few years. I taught for 4 years out of school. It was a part of a program called Teach for America, which is basically like the Peace Corps of teaching. And so you graduate from college and they throw you right into the schools and you just figure it out. And, that experience was awesome too, because I learned so much about myself. I was 21, 22 years old, teaching eighth graders in the Bronx. I'm
Oh,
born in
wow.
New York, from New York City, but like it was such an experience. It was such an experience. No, 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 no. Um, sorry. So it was such an experience. And so from there, I started working for Madison Square Garden in the community relations department. And so once I started doing that, I started to get into the whole idea, like this whole sports philanthropy world. And from there, I ended up starting on my own thing. And so I had a business partner. We worked together at the garden, and we were like, the celebrity power, the resources, all these things can be used for really, really good things. And so we started to do consulting for professional athletes. So basically, like to start their foundations or to, consult with them on when they want to do fundraising events, to raise money, to get back to their own communities. So it was kind of a good pivot from teaching, but where I had been kind of on the other side of it. So we would design programs for them and like put on events, and that kind of took over the events part of it, took over the business, and we just started doing these like massive, all NBA All Star events and stuff at Super Bowl, and it just kind of evolved from there. But yeah, I mean, being connected to sports, it wasn't running per se, but like definitely being still connected to sports was important to me because it's kind of part of my life, my whole life. So I really, I did that for about 10 years and then kind of, hunkered down, had my children, and then got back into it afterwards, but not on that scale.
So, speaking of getting back into it, you were primarily a sprinter, correct, when you were in college?
Yep,
But then you
yep.
switched it up. Now you doing more than just sprinting. You running a long, long, long
Yeah,
way right now.
I know.
What
I often
made you
joke.
decide to switch into marathon?
I joke all the time. I'm like, I don't know how this happened to me. Like, I laugh at my friends, even, my friends who are all sprinters or former teammates, and they're like, marathons, what? Like, and 'cause in college it was such a difference. The distance girls and the sprinters, we were like two different. We didn't eat the same food, we didn't have the same training. They used to go out for these long runs. We would all our workouts were super short. Like, so it's just funny. So I still ran after college. I would just jog, just for fitness, for fun. And it wasn't until 2007 I would watch the New York City Marathon every year because the course went right in my neighborhood. So it was just like a thing. I always loved to watch it. I found it super inspiring. I mean, all those people out there, just like from all ages and all kinds of backgrounds. Like, I mean, anyone who's never watched a marathon, please go and watch a marathon. It is one of the most uplifting things you will ever do, and I promise you. So after watching some friends of mine, actually personal friends of mine run, I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, I can do this. Right? I had no idea, but I was just like, they ran a marathon. I want to do it. So I just downloaded some training program I found online and started running, and I just would start adding on miles. So start running longer and longer and longer. And I got up to, a couple long runs because the marathon is 26.2 miles. And so you have to do at least a few
Ooh,
long runs in your training.
I just thinking about that. Okay, so I think that leads into one of our audience, one of our very supportive viewers, Edwin Evans, has a question for you, and I think it leads perfectly into the question you were just asked. Can you see that one on the screen?
Oh, yeah. In my opinion, runners have the best physique, cardio. How much discipline does it take to maintain peak performance? It takes a lot. I mean, with distance running, because you build up in mileage, again, with sprinters are so different. Our training is different. We lift a little more weights. It's all about short and powerful. With distance running, it's slow building, right? And so you're building up miles. And so for me, making that pivot was probably the biggest one. And even now, I mean, I'm older. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of and making sure I don't get injured, like all those kinds of things. So I think between it just takes up a lot of time, and every single cycle, I'm like, oh my god, I forgot how much marathon training takes up. Like you really have to be dedicated to it. So, but I mean, the one thing I love about it is that it's so accessible. Literally everybody can do this. Everyone can do it, and start wherever you are. So that's the other thing about the sport that I love.
Okay, you said start wherever you are. Let me tell you, I haven't ran since a 600-yard dash in sixth grade. So I don't know. I mean, as I was
It's
listening
all
to you, it's like,
right. It's
oh,
all
it's so
right.
motivating. You should watch it. I'm like, man, I need to
You
do
can
a
do it. You can do
5K first.
it. Start slow, but that's what I tell people that all the time. Start with a 5K or 3 miles. Start just on your own running 1 mile and then seeing how far you could go. Another thing people do is starting, not worrying about the mileage, just worry about time, So you go out
Mhm.
for 20 minutes, then you go out for 30 minutes, then you go out for 40 minutes. And before you know it, you've built up an hour of running. And so your body, if I told you you'd be running for an hour, you'd be like, no way. And so sometimes when you think about it in terms of time, it's easier to make the transition.
Okay, today is June 9th, 2020. And I'm not going to say I'm setting any goals, but I'm just going to say this date out loud when my conversation with Miss Erica. So, who knows? I may come back on August the 9th, right? I may have something to talk about. I'm not saying I will. Okay. I'm not telling y'all I'm going to have something to talk about, but
Hey,
I might.
listen,
I
it
just
starts with
might.
a walk. It can start with a walk. I'm serious. Like, it's just you start I was a runner and I had to start somewhere. Like I started with I think I might have been on a treadmill one day and I was like, oh, let me just keep going. Let me just keep going. Let me just keep going. Before I'd known, I ran 7 miles on a treadmill, which is insane. Now that I even think about it. But like that's how I started. I was like, oh, I can do it. So
Well, I the last time I have been walking a little bit more during
yeah,
this time because we have some extra time, and so I think the
yeah,
last time I walked, I did maybe a little over 4 miles. So I
yeah,
can walk, I do walk,
yeah,
but
yeah.
rarely do I run
Yeah.
anywhere ever.
Well, now, like you said, everybody's been trying to get out, so it's definitely, I think a big part of everybody.
Okay, this is funny. This isn't a question, but more of a comment about running. I feel you, Edwin. I feel you. I totally feel you.
Same UNC. I
That
almost went to
speaking of,
UNC. That was my school.
oh really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, you were just talking about getting into what you eventually did as your own company, event designing, and then also consulting for celebrities who wanted to start their own foundations because of your work at Madison Square Garden. And of course, when I think of sports, I do think of Madison Square Garden. And right now, where we are in our country and in our world, people are talking about the way that sports can come back safely. What are your thoughts around that? Are you ready to see sports? Do you think it's too soon? Do you think it's beyond time for it to come back?
I I think that it's too soon in the sense that the way we used to do things, that I look at pictures of like baseball stadiums or football stadiums, all those people so close together. I get like, I mean, this makes my heart start palpitating. You know what I mean? Like, I just think
Right.
this is not, we're not ready for that. Like, I think we will get there, but I do feel like, the large crowds is tough. That's tough right now. But, obviously I miss the sports. My husband misses sports, just being able to watch it. And I get it. I get why people, you know, wanted to come back, but I do think it's too soon. And running is another one. Like, and I love it. All of our races basically have been canceled for 2020, and but running is the kind of you see the races, but like you don't realize there's a lot of people. Like the New York City Marathon has 50,000 runners.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
50,000 runners. So think about that. Like we're all in the corrals together. We're
Wow.
fighting. We're running together. And there's also in New York City 1 million spectators. So think about that. So there's crowds everywhere. I mean, it's awesome. It's a wonderful experience. It's amazing. But in this climate, that's tough. That's really tough. And it goes for all the races. So that's why most of them have been postponed or turned into virtual races at this point.
And you had a big one that you were just about to do before everything shut down. Which one was that again?
It was London, the London Marathon. Yep, the London Marathon was set for April 4th. So
Okay.
they actually rescheduled it for October 4th. I'm sorry, it was April 20th. They rescheduled it for October 4th. They actually have not canceled it yet, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think, if anything, they'll do what a couple of other marathons have done and just do either virtual or just have like the elites, like the really, really fast, like the people run, and then just keep it smaller. Because, it's just tough. You think about travel, you think about spectators, you think about people coming from all over the world. Like it's a pretty big race. So
You got another question.
how was your transition from being a full-time athlete to a businesswoman, wife, and mother? Well, I mean, I didn't start out as a full-time athlete. I mean, once I left college, I wasn't really a full-time athlete anymore. I think now, ironically, it's taking up more time in my life now than it did when I was younger. I didn't have a family. But it's been tough, again, like I said, my husband's also a runner, so that's cool. So he understands, we both understand. We get that marathon training takes up a lot of hours, and so we figure out ways to let each other run. Somebody has the kids, the other one's running, like that. But it's a big transition, and now I swear I say to people all the time. I mean, hats off to work moms, dads, people who work full time, people who got kids at home, because I don't know how any of us are doing anything right now. Like, it is hard. It is very hard.
It's definitely tough. Definitely been a tough transition. So,
Yeah.
and I was gonna, you gave some great information about the crowds, particularly in New York City, because I did not know marathons had that many participants.
Well,
Number
that's the
one, let
biggest one.
alone that many Okay, that is the biggest. It's even bigger than the
New York is the
Boston.
biggest one. New York is bigger than Boston. Yep, yep,
Okay,
yep, yep. There's a lot
wow.
of international people that come to New York. So Boston is a time qualifier, so not everybody gets to run Boston. You have to qualify for Boston. It's a big race, but with New York, there's a lottery. There's people from all over the world coming in, so it's actually the biggest race in terms of participants. Yeah.
And so when you started, did you start off in a marathon? Did you start off in a half marathon? Where did you start off when you first entered?
Funny enough, I actually started in a marathon. I didn't even run a half marathon until after my first marathon. I know. I don't know
Wow.
what. I think I was just so focused. I'm like, I'm gonna run a marathon. It's kind of like that's athlete. That's how we are. We're just like crazy. Like I had my mind set up like, no, I want to run the whole thing. And so I trained for that and I ran it. And then after that, I would enter half. Because I didn't run. I ran my first marathon in 2008. I didn't come back until 2017 after I had, yeah. So after I had both my kids, so I didn't run any marathons for 9 years. So
Wow.
really, but in that time I ran halves. I ran half marathons. I ran 10Ks. I ran 5Ks. So in terms of my marathon career, like I've run 5 marathons as of right now. But it was a big gap between my first one and the other ones.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
a lot had happened in between the first one and the second one.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, definitely. Career transition, wife,
Oh my
mother,
God.
a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
And then you still went back and started
I
picking up those
still
26
went back
miles.
because then
Wow.
it becomes now it's more of a it's like it's how I keep my sanity really. I mean it's something else. It's for me, right? And so
Mhm.
it's always been for me, but that's taken on different shapes. In the beginning, it was a challenge. Before I had a family, it was just me. I could go out and do whatever I wanted. It was a challenge. Now it's become this is my me time. This is how I take care of myself. This is how I keep my mind right. This is how, and I'm still challenging myself. I'm still able to perform and all those kinds of things. And I realize now it's just taken on different forms.
So now, there's so many different categories in terms of track and field and running. Do you think that athletes competing in those fields have as big of a platform as, say, your football players, baseball players, or basketball players?
No, I mean, unfortunately, I think that the track athletes, now obviously it's a little different. Social media has helped that obviously,
Right.
just like with everything else. You know, when I was in college, we didn't have Instagram, Facebook, obviously, so it wasn't, we couldn't promote ourselves, right? We were completely reliant on whatever pictures, whatever was just out there. And so I think about that sometimes. It's funny. But now with social media, I think that the athletes who may or may not have gotten the attention they would have back then are, actually in the spotlight. So that's a good thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously in our country, especially, you know, basketball, football, those baseball, those sports are gonna just they just are more popular. I mean, even soccer, if you look at it, isn't as big here as it is in Europe, say, or in South America. I think it's getting bigger, but those platforms, I think, are always gonna be what it is, just because of what people are into in this country.
Right. And thinking about platforms, there are many athletes in both football as well as basketball who have been very vocal about racial injustice in the wake of George Floyd's murder, who was had his final funeral on today. What do you think about any athlete, NBA, NFL, regardless of the sport, using their platform to speak out about social injustice?
I think it's wonderful. I think they all should do it. To be honest with you, you know, I was 100% down with Colin Kaepernick. I was 100% down with, it's funny you say that, because I've been watching old videos of Muhammad Ali from the 60s, and just kind of like doing a deep dive on when he, refused to go to the draft, and then they had that big conference, and like Bill Russell was there, and like, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jim Brown, and they all got behind him. Like, that was a moment. And think about that. Then I was 19, I think like 62 or something like that. And here we are now. And these athletes are still speaking up about some of the same things. And it's really
Mm-hmm.
deep. And so I think they all should use it. But I'm super proud of the young athletes who are really, not throwing caution to the wind. They don't care about their, teams. They don't care about people, coming down on them. Like, they don't care. Like, they're gonna get out there and use their platform. I think that's really, really important. Especially because they just get so much attention, right? Obviously, there's plenty of people doing, the work on the activism side, and have been doing it. But I do feel like, because they have a platform, because people are paying attention to them and looking at them, they do have a responsibility. And I love to see it. I love to see it.
Do you have any final, as we begin to wrap up, do you have any final thoughts on what you think the athletic legacy might be in the wake of this? Because I've heard a lot of people say, particularly with businesses, not with athletes as much, but more with businesses and corporations and even organizations, people are waiting for the organizations or the businesses that they patronize to step up and make a statement. And up to this point, lots of businesses and organizations have, but some haven't. In the same way, there have been some of our very, very popular athletes that have taken a stand, whether they have voiced something on social media or they've done an interview. Do you think the long-term legacy will be impacted on those who don't say anything at all during this time?
That's a good question. I think from the outside, perhaps, and for like, there's athletes right now, obviously, I can't think of any big names who haven't spoken out at this point. Um, but I think on the personal side, I think they'll look back on this moment and kind of wish that they were a part of it in a bigger way, right? Like, so when you're in the moment, it's kind of tough because you've got decisions to make, and you feel like, it's dangerous or what have you. But this is the time, because everybody is focused on it. It makes you really realize how brave Colin Kaepernick was, how brave, LeBron, and other folks who have stepped out and talked about these things that have been going on for years, right? We know. Um, and we realize how brave they were and they are to have done that. And so I think I think that sports organizations I hope that sports organizations will start to step up, and really, in terms of taking care of their players and taking care of their players' lives and caring about what's happening to their players off the field and off the track, because that's really what we're talking about, right? They're human beings,
Definitely.
and it's not just about what's happening in the sports arena. It's about, do you care about me as a person, and so I hope, I have faith that, this is a moment that will turn into something else. But again, like it's like seizing the time. I'm all about that.
All right, and we have one final question from our one of our viewers.
Hmm. We assume that athletes are people who are in great shape, have strict diets, and great nutrition. Good nutrition, excuse me. So what's in your fridge? Ooh, okay. I'm pretty good. Like I'm actually vegan. But I definitely I'm not a strict vegan. I'll say that. Like if I want to have a cookie, I'm gonna eat a cookie. If I want, a glass of wine, I'm having a glass of wine. Like especially during training because you're starving all the time. But I do watch, what I eat, and that's just because as I get older too, your body's changing and everything, and I'm still trying to perform at a certain level. I definitely have to. I'm not at the point anymore like I was when I was in college, and I can just eat whatever I want and be fine. So I definitely try to stay, healthy, whole foods mostly. I don't eat dairy. I don't eat any sort of, I try to not to eat processed food. I try to limit the sugar. Just the main things really.
What's your favorite vegan dish and the favorite vegan dish that you think meat lovers would enjoy as well?
You know what I really love? I think meat lovers would love. I like chana masala, which is chickpeas, basically like garbanzo beans, in
Yeah.
in a curry in a masala. I really enjoy that because it's hearty, it's good, it's flavorful, and then garbanzo beans are pretty filling. So I feel like with meat eaters, that's always the questions. Like, am I gonna be starving, all the time? And no, you're not. If you're eating the right stuff, you won't be.
Well, cool. I have to check that out. I love hummus.
Yeah.
I definitely love
Yes.
hummus.
Hummus is
But
another favorite of mine. I love hummus. I love
yeah, so good. So good. Well, Erica, thank you so much for taking the time out of your
hummus. Of
busy
course.
schedule, balancing home life now. And
Thank
are
you.
you
I
still
appreciate it.
training for the eventual marathon that will come
So
back?
it's funny. I was just talking to my coach. I talk to my coach all the time, and I'm like, for the first couple months, I was like completely unmotivated to do anything. I was just like, so I was running, but just really right now, I'm not training per se. I'm running, but it's really for
Hmm.
fun. And this is like the only time when we ever get a chance to do this, right? We're not focused on a race. We can just run and actually fall in love with running again. So that's kind of where I'm at. We'll see how the fall goes. I don't anticipate any races in the fall, but I'll just kind of keep, plodding along just in case I need to start training. I can, kick it up and not kill myself.
Okay, cool. Well, we will be on the lookout for that. And so, for everyone
Cool.
who's
For sure.
watching the broadcast, you can connect with Erica on her Instagram. It is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Erica, again, thank you so much for
Thanks for
hanging
having
out
me
with us
as
on the
well.
Angela Ray Show. Have a great
Thank you so much.
evening.
You too. Bye.
Okay. All right. Bye bye. All right, that's it for this Tuesday edition for the Angela Ray Show. As always, I would like to remind you of Ray of Motivation number 54. Cleaning a mirror does not change the person who is reflected in it. I'm really thinking about that one too today, since I said something about a possible run. Until next time, I encourage you to go out and be the change.